I didn't find out about my sister's wedding until 3 days after it happened. That's not an exaggeration. No save the date, no invite, no phone call, not even a lazy group text, just silence. Until I opened Instagram and saw a picture of my entire family, my mom, dad, both brothers, all 3 aunts, their husbands, and every cousin I'd ever grown up with, smiling in coordinated outfits, barefoot on a beach in Maui, throwing flower petals into the ocean with a caption that read, "The most magical day of our lives. Welcome to the family, Kevin." I stared at the photo, so long my screen dimmed. I remember because I blinked and it took me a second to realize the phone had gone dark. That photo would be the first of many. They flooded in over the next few hours. Videos of the ceremony, poolside selfies, sunset dinners, drunken karaoke. My older sister, Amelia, looked stunning in her dress. Her new husband, Kevin, was practically glowing. My mom had even worn her hair in the old updo I told her she looked best in. The whole event looked like something out of a luxury destination wedding catalog. And I, Jack, 29, the youngest sibling by a decent stretch, wasn't even a blip in it. I didn't cry. Not right away. I just froze. You know that feeling when your brain tries to rationalize something awful? I started coming up with excuses for them. Maybe it was a super last-minute ceremony. Maybe they thought I wouldn't be able to get time off work. Maybe they tried to call, and it didn't go through. Maybe the invitation got lost in the mail. Maybe. But the captions told another story. Best week ever with the people we love most. Couldn't have asked for a more perfect group. Every single person who mattered to us was there. That last one was from my sister. And that's when the tears came. Not loud sobs or anything dramatic. Just slow, angry drops that I kept wiping away like they weren't real. I wasn't even mad at first. I was hollow. Like someone had erased me from my own family's memory. The next day, I called my mom. She picked up on the second ring, sounding chipper, as if I was just another one of her Facebook friends calling to compliment the dress. "Jack, hey sweetie, did you see the photos?" Wasn't Amelia radiant? I didn't waste time. Why wasn't I invited? There was a pause, long enough that I thought the call dropped. Then she said, "Oh honey, we just assumed you wouldn't be able to afford it." That was it. No apology. No hesitation, just a casual statement, like she was commenting on the weather. I could feel my pulse in my ears. "You assumed?" "Well, yeah. I mean, you've been so busy with your little startup thing, and with everything being so expensive in Hawaii, we didn't want to pressure you. We figured you'd understand." "I would have figured it out," I said quietly. "You never asked." She let out a breath like I was being difficult. It was all moving so fast. Amelia didn't want to wait another year. And it was mostly just family anyway. Close friends, aunts, uncles, you know. I swallowed hard. I am family. That silence came again. Then, with the kind of voice you use when you're talking to a toddler who's throwing a tantrum, she said, "Jack, don't take it personally. You're always so sensitive." That was the moment something inside me broke. Not in a fiery, explosive way, but in a quiet, surgical kind of way. Like a switch flipped. I didn't scream. I didn't cry again. I just nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "You're right," I said. She hesitated. "Right about what?" "I couldn't afford it." Then I hung up. And that was the last time I spoke to my family for over a year. The thing is, my mom wasn't completely wrong. At the time, I couldn't afford a trip to Hawaii. Not even close. I'd poured every cent I had into a small tech consulting business I'd started 2 years prior. It was barely breaking even. Some months I had to choose between paying rent and marketing software. But it was my baby, and I believed in it. I just hadn't told my family much about it because they never really took it seriously. To them, if it wasn't a 9 to 5 with benefits, it wasn't a real job. They still thought I worked in IT support, like I did fresh out of college. But that call, that moment, that flip switch, it lit a fire under me that I didn't even know I had. I stopped waiting for their approval. I stopped trying to explain myself. I didn't post on Instagram. Didn't send holiday texts. When my birthday rolled around a few months later and no one reached out, not even a generic HBD on Facebook, I knew they'd written me off completely. And weirdly, that gave me power. Because while they were drinking pina coladas and posting reels of underwater snorkeling, I was grinding. I took every client I could get. I taught myself how to automate half the business so I could scale faster. I pulled 14-hour days, sleeping on my office floor some nights. I lived off canned soup and black coffee. I built a team, hired smart, fired smarter. And little by little, the numbers started turning in my favor. We landed a big contract with a hotel chain, then another with a travel app, then one with a resort management group that had a portfolio in, ironically, Hawaii. By the time the one-year anniversary of Amelia's wedding rolled around, my company was netting more in a month than I'd made in the previous year. But I didn't call my mom. I didn't tell my siblings. I didn't post about my success. I just watched from a distance as their lives went on without me. Baby announcements, new cars, Sunday brunches. I wasn't tagged in anything anymore. It was like I'd been quietly erased. But they had no idea what was coming. Because a few months later, a property came up for acquisition. A resort, mid-sized, oceanfront, recently remodeled. The exact one they'd stayed at for the wedding. And thanks to my new partnerships and the insane leverage I'd built over the last year, I had the chance to make a move that would change everything. That's when the idea hit me. It started as a joke, really. Just a petty daydream during a late-night spreadsheet session. But the more I thought about it, the more it consumed me. I didn't want revenge in the explosive, dramatic sense. I wanted silence. Elegance. I wanted them to feel what I felt, like they were on the outside of something they should have been part of. So I booked the resort. Every room, every bungalow, every event space. I told the staff it was for a private event. No press, no social media, just exclusivity. I planned the guest list meticulously, friends who supported me, mentors who believed in me, colleagues who'd stuck by me when I was broke and invisible. Not one family member made the cut. And as the final confirmations rolled in, I sat in the same chair I'd been in a year ago, staring at my phone. Only this time, I wasn't crying. I was smiling. But then something happened I didn't expect, something that made everything twist just a bit. My sister called, for the first time in a year, and I didn't pick up. I stared at the screen, her name glowing like a ghost from a past life. Amelia. Just that. No emojis. No contact photo anymore. Not since I deleted it. Just her name, sitting there like a test I hadn't studied for. She called again 2 days later. Then once more the following week. No voicemails, no texts. Just quiet calls that rang out, one after another, like the universe nudging me to pay attention. I told myself not to care. I told myself it was nothing. Probably just some passive-aggressive guilt check-in, like Mom used to do. I let it ring out each time. The silence felt good. It felt earned. But then, 3 weeks before the private event at the resort, something slipped. I was on my laptop, reviewing the final logistics with the event planner when an email popped up, subject, "Hey little brother," from a name I hadn't read in over a year. It was Amelia. I didn't open it at first. I hovered, closed my laptop, poured myself some water, paste, opened it. "Hey Jack. So, I know this is long overdue. I've been thinking about reaching out for a while now, but honestly, I didn't know what to say. Things got weird after the wedding, and I didn't want to make it worse. I know you probably feel hurt. I would too, but I just want you to know it wasn't personal. We thought you'd say no. Mom said you were super busy and didn't have the money for a trip like that. And you didn't really seem that close to Kevin, so we figured you wouldn't care as much. Anyway, I heard through the grapevine that you're doing really well. That's amazing, Jack. I'm proud of you. I mean it. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. Love, Amelia." I read it 3 times. It wasn't personal. That phrase made something snap in my chest. Like every dismissal I'd swallowed my whole life had been waiting for this exact sentence to bubble back up. I wanted to believe she meant well. But all I could hear behind those words was the same voice that once told me not to be so dramatic when I cried after she read my college application essay out loud to the whole family, like it was a stand-up routine. The same voice that once asked, "Do you ever get tired of making things about you?" Still, I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled up my calendar. 3 weeks. That's how long until the event. Until I'd walk through the doors of the resort they once celebrated at without me and watch the sun set over the ocean with people who chose to be in my life. Not because of shared blood or childhood memories, but because I mattered to them. And then, because the universe has a twisted sense of humor, Mom called. This time I answered. "Jack," she said like we'd just spoken yesterday. "I've been meaning to call you." I said nothing. "So?" She hesitated, clearly not expecting the wall of silence. "Amelia told me she reached out." "That's good, right? You two need to reconnect. I know things got messy." "Messy," I repeated, like I was tasting the word. "Is that what you're calling it?" "Oh honey, come on. It was a wedding. People make mistakes. We didn't think you'd be upset forever." I wasn't upset, I said. I was erased. She let out a sharp little laugh, like I was being dramatic again. Don't be ridiculous. You know we love you. Love me enough to post about how everyone who mattered was there. There was silence. A longer one this time. That was Amelia's caption, she said carefully. You stood right next to her. In every photo. You didn't say anything. More silence. I could almost hear her rearranging her excuses like a Rolodex, flipping through the options. You know, she said finally, this attitude is exactly why we didn't want to pressure you into coming. That was it. That was the moment I realized she didn't see me. Had never really seen me. To her, I was still the sensitive kid who cried too easily and asked too many questions. The weird little brother who liked books more than football and always took things too personally. I'm not upset anymore, I said flatly. I just don't care. Then I hung up. That same night, I sent out the formal invites for my private event. Every envelope sealed with a gold stamp. Every name carefully selected. The guest list was intimate, 30 people. The ones who stood by me when I had nothing. A few clients who turned into friends. My first mentor from college. The landlord who gave me a break when I was 2 months behind. People who never made me feel like a footnote. And just for the poetic symmetry of it all, I sent one last envelope. No invitation inside. Just a photo. Me, standing in front of the resort, smiling with a glass of champagne in hand, the ocean in the background. On the back, I wrote 5 words. Guess who can afford it now? I sent it to my mom's address. I didn't expect a reply, but a few days later, it came. An email this time. No subject line. No greeting. That was cruel, Jack. I don't know what you think you're proving, but it's not classy. Families forgive each other. You've made your point. Let it go. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about the wedding. It was never just about the wedding. It was about a lifetime of being the afterthought. Like the time I got accepted into an elite summer program in high school, and they all skipped my celebration dinner because Amelia had a new boyfriend to introduce. Or when I broke my collarbone playing rec soccer and Mom said, well, that's what happens when you try to be something you're not. Or every single Christmas where I got the last gift unwrapped. The leftover attention. I didn't hate them for it. Not anymore. Hate is too heavy. But I didn't forgive them either. 2 days before my event, my brother Nate, who hadn't called me in 2 years, texted, Yo man, heard about the big celebration. That's wild. Mind if I come by for a bit? No explanation. No apology. Just a casual, last-minute drop-in like we were college buddies who lost touch. I didn't answer. The next day, I got a DM on Instagram from my cousin Jess. Is this the same resort we stayed at for the wedding? LOL, that's hilarious. Looks so pretty. You there now? That's when I realized something was leaking. Someone I'd invited had shared a post. One photo. Just a sneak peek of the setup. A white canopy on the beach, elegant table settings, soft lighting. By that night, 5 more messages came in. All from relatives who hadn't spoken to me in over a year. Suddenly, I was the hot ticket. Suddenly, everyone remembered I existed. Even Kevin, the guy who married into the family and never said more than, "What's up?" at Thanksgiving, sent me a LinkedIn message. Hey Jack, Amelia mentioned you're throwing some kind of event in Hawaii? That's amazing, bro. We'll actually be on the island that weekend. Would love to catch up if you're around. That was the final straw. Not because he messaged me, but because he used the word bro. We were never bros. And that's when it hit me. They didn't want me. They wanted proximity. To success. To money. To whatever this glow-up version of me was now. But none of them wanted the version of me who slept on his office floor and ate $8 ramen for months while they posted engagement photos and drank cocktails in swim-up bars. The day of the event came faster than I expected. I flew in 2 days early to oversee everything. The resort staff were incredible, helpful, discreet, professional. They understood the assignment. The property was flawless. The flowers, the lights, the music, it was like something out of a movie. The night before the event, I stood alone on the balcony of my suite, watching the waves crash softly against the shore. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself feel the weight of it all. Not the revenge, not the victory, just the quiet ache of what I'd lost. Because despite everything, a small part of me had wanted them to notice, to apologize, to say, "We messed up, Jack. We should have been there." But they never did. They just wanted back in now that it looked fun again. The next morning, just as the first guests were arriving, the front desk called. "There's a woman here," the concierge said. "She says she's your mother." I froze. She's not on the guest list, they added, but she says it's important. I felt a dozen emotions at once. Anger, confusion, something dangerously close to hope. Is she alone? I asked. A pause. She's with two other people, a man and a woman. Of course, Amelia and Kevin. They were here. They came, but not for me. They came to crash something they weren't invited to. Something I built with every ounce of pain they left me to carry alone. I took a breath. My heart was pounding. Tell them, I said slowly. This event is for family. And then I hung up. But I hadn't seen the last of them. Because 3 hours later, they tried something I never expected. They didn't take the hint. I knew they wouldn't. Deep down, I think I always knew the word no had never meant much to people like them. People who were used to always being let in, always getting their way. My mom had been steamrolling boundaries since I was old enough to speak. Amelia had turned passive aggression into an art form by middle school. And Kevin? Well, Kevin just did whatever Amelia told him to do, which made him arguably the most dangerous of the three. I thought rejecting them at the front desk would be the end of it. I'd imagine them slinking back to their rental car in embarrassment, maybe booking a flight home a day early, blaming me to each other while they waited in the lounge for their overpriced airport food. But of course not. Because when the event began, when the sun started to dip low on the horizon, and the music came on, and the laughter swelled across the beach lawn like the tide, my past showed up again. Only this time, it was wearing makeup and sunglasses. They didn't try the front entrance again. No, they went around, walked the perimeter of the resort, probably scoped it out earlier that morning. I was standing near the pool bar, talking to someone from my very first investor meeting, Susan, a retired engineer who took a chance on me when I was pitching software prototypes out of a Starbucks, when I spotted a figure ducking between palm trees near the property line. I stopped mid-sentence. Susan noticed. You okay? I nodded, then turned away slightly, pretending I was looking for someone. But I saw it. Amelia's blonde hair, unmistakable even under a wide-brimmed hat. She was walking quickly, glancing side to side like she was in some sort of amateur heist movie. Kevin followed behind her, holding what looked like a gift bag. I kid you not. A gift bag. And behind him was my mother. Wearing white. White. To my event. I blinked like I was hallucinating. My jaw actually dropped. I'd read stories online about people crashing weddings or parties, showing up in white to be petty, but I never thought I'd see it happen in real time. I wasn't angry. I was done. I handed my drink to Susan and calmly walked toward the concierge. Hey, I said, voice even. We may have a breach of the perimeter. He blinked. A breach? I pointed. The group by the east side palms. None of them are guests. Please escort them off the property. He looked over and stiffened immediately. Absolutely, sir. Within minutes, 2 resort staff, both well-trained and radio-connected, walked calmly toward the invaders. I watched from a distance as they were intercepted mid-sneak. Amelia tried to act surprised. Kevin looked lost. My mom. Well, she folded her arms like she was the victim of a misunderstanding. I saw them arguing. Heard a few words float across the breeze. Family. Miscommunication. Invitation must have been lost. They were grasping. Eventually, they were walked off property, not forcibly, but firmly. And that should have been the end of it. But the real fall didn't come that day. It came the next. Because while I was still glowing from the high of the event, still standing on that pedestal of sweet, silent revenge, I woke up to a different kind of notification. A Facebook post. From my mother. I don't normally air family matters online, but I'm heartbroken today. After everything I've done for my children, being excluded from such an important event has shattered me. I raised my son to be kind, generous, and thoughtful. I never imagined he'd become someone who thinks success is more important than family. If you're reading this, please remember, the way you treat your parents says everything about who you are. The comments were filled with sympathy. Sending hugs, Linda. You're such a good mom. He'll come around. Kids these days have no gratitude. Only 1 or 2 people question the narrative. But they were drowned out. And that's when I felt it, the crash after the high. The weight of the spotlight being flipped back on me. Only this time not as the overlooked brother, but as the villain. And it didn't stop there. Amelia posted next. A carousel of wedding photos. Yes, again, with a caption dripping in condescension. I wasn't going to say anything, but I guess we're sharing now. My brother chose to cut out his entire family for reasons none of us understand. I reached out. I apologized. I tried, but I guess money changes people. I didn't respond. Not online. Not privately. But I read everything. Every tag. Every subtweet. Every passive-aggressive story post. I watched as relatives I hadn't seen since childhood joined the pity parade. I watched old family friends share it like it was some public statement. I watched my name get dragged in a way I never prepared for. And for the first time in a long time, I felt small again. I thought I'd healed. I thought the event, the resort, the moment, that it would erase the years of being overlooked, misunderstood, uninvited. But standing in the aftermath of my own celebration, I realized something I hadn't anticipated. You can't win a war you don't admit you're fighting. Because I wasn't just trying to make a point. I was still trying to be seen. Still chasing the validation I never got at 10 years old when Mom left my science fair early to go pick up Amelia's dress fitting. Still trying to earn a spot at a table that was never set for me. The internet can be cruel. It feeds on emotion. It distorts facts into drama. And within a few days, some of my clients saw the posts. A few reached out awkwardly. One pulled out of a deal, said they didn't want to get involved in family issues. It stung. The event that was supposed to crown my comeback had quietly cost me. I wasn't canceled or anything dramatic. But the shine dimmed. The story shifted. I became the guy who booked a whole resort just to snub his own mother. And for the first time since I'd hung up that phone a year ago, I started to doubt myself. Had I gone too far? Had I lost sight of what I wanted? I stopped posting, paused all interviews, took a step back from the business for a while. My team was capable. They kept things moving, but I was adrift. Some nights, I couldn't sleep. I'd sit on the edge of my bed and stare at the floor, wondering if I'd let revenge turn me into the very person I swore I wasn't. It felt like rock bottom. Not the dramatic, fall from grace kind, but the quiet kind. The kind where you realize success means nothing if you're still carrying old wounds. But then, something changed. It started small. A handwritten letter arrived at my office. From Susan, the woman I'd spoken to at the event. The one who'd once invested in me when all I had was a pitch deck and a dream. Jack, I don't know what's going on with your family, and frankly, it's none of my business. But I do know this. That event was filled with joy, generosity, and integrity. Everyone there was there for the right reasons. You brought good people together. You honored the ones who lifted you up. That matters more than online noise. Don't let anyone rewrite your story. You know who you are. Susan. I read it 3 times. And then I cried. Not because I was sad, but because for the first time in weeks, I felt anchored. Like someone saw the version of me I was trying so hard to protect. The version that wasn't vindictive or cruel. Just tired. Just trying to heal in the only way I knew how. That letter pulled me out. I got back to work. But not in the hustle, grind, scale at all costs way I had before. I slowed down. I started doing office hours again. Free consulting for startups, just getting off the ground. I met with founders who reminded me of me, wide-eyed and scared and scrappy. I shared the mistakes I'd made. I helped people without expecting anything in return. And weirdly, that healed me more than any party ever could. I restructured the company, gave my team more equity, hired a head of people, started a mentorship program through our platform. I stopped caring about the headlines and started caring about the legacy. And something incredible happened. The narrative changed. Not because I forced it, but because I lived differently. People saw. Clients came back. Some even apologized. And one day, quietly, without drama, Amelia deleted her post. Then Mom's disappeared too. No explanations. No messages. Just gone. But I didn't reach out. Because by then, I didn't need to anymore. I wasn't climbing a ladder to their approval anymore. I was building a life without their weight on my shoulders. And then, about 6 months after the event, just as I was preparing to speak at a small tech summit in San Diego, I got a call from a number I hadn't seen in over a decade. Aunt Denise. The only relative who hadn't posted anything during the Facebook firestorm. I hesitated, then picked up. Her voice was warm, unchanged. Jack, she said, I know I might be overstepping, but there's something you should probably know. I sat down slowly, and what she said next made my stomach drop. Because the betrayal that started with a wedding wasn't the only one. And the thing she told me? It rewrote everything I thought I understood about my family. I hadn't spoken to Aunt Denise in years. She was the quiet one in the family. The one who didn't pick sides, didn't raise her voice, didn't insert herself unless absolutely necessary. When my parents fought, She'd be the one making sure the kids were in another room with snacks. She was Amelia's godmother, my mom's younger sister, and had lived 2 states away for most of my life. In family photos, she was always in the back, smiling, never spotlighted. And yet, somehow, it was her voice that finally cracked the surface of something I hadn't even realized was still buried. "Jack," she said again, gently, "are you sitting down?" "I am now." There was a pause. She breathed in like she wasn't sure whether to keep going. "I should have told you this a long time ago," she said. "But I didn't want to cause drama. And honestly, I wasn't sure if you even wanted to hear it. But after everything that's happened, I just can't keep it to myself anymore." My chest tightened. "What is it?" "It's about your inheritance," she said. I blinked. "My what?" "From Grandpa Harold. Your mom and Amelia told everyone he didn't leave you anything. That he thought you were too young and irresponsible with money. But that's not true, Jack. That's not true at all." I stood up so fast I nearly knocked over the chair. "I was at the reading of the will," Denise continued, her voice slow, careful. "Your mom didn't want me there, but I insisted. I'd help take care of Harold in his final months. He was clear about what he wanted. He left each of you grandkids something. He set aside $100,000 each. You, Amelia, and Nate. And he left the remaining assets, his house, the stocks, the vintage car collection, to be divided evenly between his children, your mom, Uncle Dave, and me." "Okay," I said, still trying to catch up. "But later that year," she continued, "your mom told everyone you refused the money, that you thought it was blood money or something. She said you'd gotten into some crypto thing and didn't need it. She even claimed you signed a form to waive the inheritance." My mouth went dry. "I asked her to show me the document," Denise said. "She got angry, said I was accusing her of lying. After that, I didn't push again. I regret that now." My mind was spinning. Why would they lie about that? "I think it's because Amelia was struggling financially at the time," Denise said. "And your mom? Well, you know how she's always tried to keep up appearances. I wouldn't be surprised if they redirected your share to help pay for Amelia's grad school. Or maybe Kevin's business loans. Who knows?" I sat down again, slowly this time. "I didn't have proof," Denise said. "But I always suspected something wasn't right. And then, when I saw what they posted after your event, the guilt tripping, the gaslighting, I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I didn't speak. I couldn't. I was too busy replaying the last decade of my life through a new filter. All those years I struggled, working 2 jobs out of college, sleeping on couches, skipping meals to keep the lights on. All those humiliating family dinners where they made jokes about me being the broke genius, while Amelia and Nate were praised for their stable paths. And all along, I wasn't broke. I'd been robbed. By my own family. I managed to whisper, "Thank you for telling me." There was another pause. Then she said something that changed everything. "I have a copy of the will." I stood up again. "It's in my storage," she said. "I made a copy the day of the reading, just in case. I can overnight it to you. And if you ever decide to do something about it, I'll back you up." I don't know how long I sat there after we hung up. Time stopped matching. My mind raced through memories like a Rolodex on fire. The forgotten birthdays. The silent treatment. The Instagram captions that said everything without saying my name. I'd spent a year building myself up after they cut me out. I thought I'd moved on. But this wasn't emotional neglect. This was theft. And now, for the first time, I had leverage. The will arrived 2 days later. Certified mail. Inside was a yellowing envelope stamped with the estate lawyer's firm, a notarized copy of Harold's final wishes, and a post-it note from Aunt Denise. "You don't owe them kindness. D." I read the will 4 times. There it was in plain black ink. "To my grandson Jack, I leave $100,000 to be held in trust until his 25th birthday." No caveats. No disclaimers. Nothing about rejection. And I had never seen that money. Not a single cent. I spent the rest of the day pulling old bank statements, digging through email archives, even contacting the estate lawyer's office. The firm had since merged with another, but the senior paralegal still had access to digital records. After verifying my identity, he confirmed it. The funds were disbursed. Per signed authorization, Jack Wilson's portion was redirected into a family account for administrative distribution, as permitted by his assigned trustee at the time, his legal guardian, Linda Wilson. My mother. She was my trustee when I was 25, and she'd stolen $100,000 from me. Suddenly, Everything came into sharp focus. The casual way she dismissed me. The assumption that I couldn't afford a trip to Hawaii. The tight smiles whenever I brought up money at family gatherings. Amelia's always updated wardrobe. Kevin's magically expanding startup, despite having no revenue. They didn't forget about me. They cashed me in. And now, I had the receipts. But I didn't want to just call them out. That would be too easy. I wanted to do this right. With elegance. With proof. With silence so loud they'd hear it echo for years. And that meant planning. First, I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. A bulldog, a white-collar fraud specialist who used to work in federal prosecution before starting her own practice. Her name was Carla Ortiz, and she didn't play games. After laying out everything I had, she sat back in her chair and said, "Jack, this isn't just inheritance fraud. It's fiduciary misconduct. Your mother was a trustee. She had a legal obligation to act in your best interest. Redirecting that money, without your knowledge or consent, is a violation of state and federal trust laws." My heart pounded. "So what does that mean?" "It means," she said with a smile, "you have options." She outlined a strategy that was brutal in its precision. Civil litigation. File a suit for the full amount plus damages. Mediation demand. Before trial, offer to settle privately, but with terms that would sting far more than money. Public pressure. If they resisted, leak the story to financial justice blogs. Use the documentation, the paper trail, the notarized will. Let the court of public opinion speak. And if they get nasty? I asked. Carla grinned. "We get nastier. You're not a kid anymore, Jack." And they messed with the wrong adult. But legal action wasn't my only play. I started contacting others who'd been burned or manipulated by them. Quiet conversations with cousins, family friends, even an old neighbor who once lent Amelia a large sum for wedding prep and never got repaid. I wasn't assembling a mob. I was building a network of witnesses, of stories, of people who were ready to speak when the time came. And then I did something that surprised even me. I booked a table at Amelia's favorite brunch spot, the trendy rooftop cafe she posted about every other week, and invited her. Not to fight, not to scream, but to watch her lie to my face. And when she did, I'd know exactly how far she'd go. The day of the brunch, she arrived 10 minutes late, wearing oversized sunglasses and a blazer 2 sizes too tight. "Jack," she said, voice sugar-coated. "I wasn't sure you'd show." I smiled. "I'm full of surprises lately." We made small talk. Ordered overpriced lattes. She asked if I was seeing anyone, in that nosy way where she was really asking how stable I was. Then, casually, I dropped the hammer. "I've been thinking about Grandpa Harold lately," I said. She froze just slightly. "Oh, yeah," I said, stirring my drink. "Funny thing, I recently saw a copy of his will." She blinked. "You did?" It said he left me $100,000. Isn't that wild?" She smiled nervously. "Huh, that doesn't sound right." "Mom said." I know what Mom said. I cut in, voice still calm. But she lied. Her lips parted, but no words came. I leaned in just slightly. "Here's what's going to happen, Amelia. I'm going to give Mom a chance to make this right. One chance. And if she doesn't, well, I have a very good lawyer. And a very public platform." "You wouldn't," she whispered. "Try me." She reached for her water, hands trembling. "Jack, it was Mom's call. I didn't. You benefited from it." Silence. I stood up, tossed a 20 on the table. "You always told me I was too sensitive," I said. Turns out, I was just paying attention. As I walked out, I didn't look back. Because this time, I didn't need to see her face to know she'd cracked. This was no longer about proving my worth. It was about reclaiming what was mine. And by the time I was finished, they'd understand exactly what that meant. I gave my mother 7 days. 7 days to come clean, to acknowledge what she'd done, to return what was mine. No theatrics, no grand speeches, just an email. I kept it short. Subject: the trust. "Mom, I know everything. I have a copy of Grandpa Harold's will, the estate documents, and records showing you redirected my inheritance without my knowledge or consent. You were my legal trustee when I turned 25, which makes this a clear breach of fiduciary duty. I am offering you the opportunity to resolve this quietly and privately. You have 7 days to return the full $100,000, plus a written admission of what you did and who else was involved. If you refuse, I will pursue legal action and make the matter public. Consider this your only chance." "Jack." She didn't respond. Not after 1 day or 2. Not after 5. Not even after I got a read receipt on day 6. I knew she saw it. She just didn't believe I'd follow through. In her mind, I was still that soft, sensitive boy who cried too easily and forgave too quickly. She didn't know the man I'd become. On the morning of the 8th day, my lawyer Carla filed the suit. The paperwork was flawless. Every document, every signature, every violation clearly outlined. We filed for full restitution, punitive damages, and fraud. And just as Carla promised, we also sent a press tip to a mid-sized financial blog that covered estate fraud and family betrayal stories. It wasn't a huge outlet, but it had a loyal readership and just enough social media traction to matter. The blog ran the story within a week. Tech founder alleges inheritance fraud by family, with documents to prove it. The headline wasn't bombastic. It didn't name names, but it linked to court records. It mentioned a prominent wedding in Hawaii and a recent private resort event that had stirred social media speculation. Within 48 hours, the story had been shared over 20,000 times. It was on Twitter, LinkedIn, Reddit. The comments were ruthless. Imagine stealing from your own kid. Mom of the Year, /S. This is why I keep my family out of my finances. He booked the same resort they used for the wedding? That's the level of petty I aspire to. I watched silently as the tide shifted. And then the phone started ringing. Amelia called first. I ignored it. Then Kevin. Then Nate. Then Mom. She left a voicemail this time. Jack. I don't even know what to say. This is humiliating. You didn't have to do it this way. You didn't have to go nuclear. We could have talked. Please call me back. I didn't. Because talking was always on their terms. Now it was on mine. Carla received their response through an attorney representing both Amelia and my mother. They tried to argue the funds had been redirected with good intent and that I had benefited indirectly through family expenses. Carla smiled when she read that. Good. Let them say that in court. But just before the first mediation hearing, something unexpected happened. A whistleblower came forward. Turns out, my mother hadn't just stolen my inheritance. She had a pattern. The neighbor I spoke with, the one who said Amelia borrowed money years ago, had documents proving the loan was orchestrated through my mom. A $20,000 transfer labeled bridal support, never repaid. Another cousin, Melissa, reached out after seeing the article. She was 19 when Grandpa Harold passed and always believed she wasn't included in the will because of bad grades and being too immature, as my mother once told her. When I showed her the will, her name wasn't on it. But Melissa's father, my Uncle Dave, had left her a private trust. When Melissa confronted my mom, she got silence. When she hired a lawyer, she found out that trust was also redirected during probate. My mother had her fingerprints all over the paperwork. It was a pattern. Control, manipulation, erasure. And now it was unraveling. Within 2 months, the civil case against my mother and Amelia had expanded. Carla worked like a machine, coordinating witness statements, securing depositions, compiling a mountain of evidence so thick it broke 3 manila folders in her office. And while the legal case churned through its stages, the court of public opinion did its part too. My mom, who once posted Sunday gratitude updates and motivational quotes about motherhood, went dark on social media. Her Facebook page vanished. Amelia's Instagram, once a polished grid of curated perfection, was wiped clean of comments. Kevin deactivated entirely. The fallout reached further than I expected. Apparently, Kevin's startup had been banking on a round of angel funding that quietly disappeared after the blog post made rounds. 2 investors backed out. One firm emailed them directly, stating they couldn't move forward with a brand associated with unresolved legal allegations. Meanwhile, my company? We surged. The attention, though unplanned, had brought visibility to our consulting platform, and small businesses flooded in, resonating with the story of a founder who pulled himself up after family betrayal. But revenge isn't about business growth or social media karma. It's about the moment they finally see you. And that moment came during the mediation hearing. We met in a glass-walled conference room in a downtown high-rise. My mother sat on one side, flanked by Amelia and 2 tight-lipped attorneys. I sat opposite them with Carla and my financial advisor. There were no cameras, no crowd, just fluorescent lighting and a pitcher of water nobody touched. The mediator, a calm woman in her 60s, opened with protocol, asked if we were willing to find a peaceful and confidential resolution. I said yes. So did my mother. But then she looked at me, and for the first time in years, her mask cracked. I never meant to hurt you, she said, voice quiet. You were always so sensitive, Jack. I didn't think you'd understand what the family needed. Carla spoke before I could. What the family needed was not your legal right to decide. My mother tried to speak again, but I raised a hand gently. I wanted to say it myself. You always thought I was soft, I said, looking her in the eye. But I wasn't. I was hopeful. I believed you would choose me, just once. And every time you didn't. I blamed myself. I thought I wasn't worth the effort. Amelia looked away. Kevin didn't show. I continued. But now I know I was just inconvenient. Someone who didn't fit the image you were trying to present. So you cut me out of the wedding. You cut me out of the will. And when I succeeded without you, you tried to crash my life like it was a party you were entitled to. I took a breath. I don't need an apology. I don't need closure. I need accountability. You stole from me. And you used that money to elevate the daughter you actually cared about. So here's the offer. I slid the paper across the table. Carla explained it. Full repayment of the $100,000 plus $50,000 in damages. A written public acknowledgement of wrongdoing. No excuses, no spin. And a signed, notarized document severing all financial claims or obligations between us. No more manipulations. No more guilt. No more calls. Just clean separation. They tried to negotiate. Carla shut it down. And after another week of silence, they accepted. The funds arrived in escrow. The statement was posted online on an unassuming blog, signed by Linda Wilson and Amelia Larson. No apology, just a confirmation that a financial oversight has been resolved. But I didn't care about the wording. I cared that it was over. It's been a year since that day. I haven't spoken to them since. They send cards on my birthday now. I don't open them. I pass them to my assistant, who files them in a drawer marked personal archive. It's full of envelopes with handwriting I don't recognize anymore. I bought a house overlooking the ocean. Quiet. Private. Filled with light and books and friends who show up without needing to be asked. I still talk to Aunt Denise once a week. Sometimes Melissa joins. She's doing great, by the way. Studying to become a paralegal. And me? I'm still building. Still healing. But lighter now. No more chasing invitations that were never meant for me. No more proving myself to people who never saw me to begin with. Just the freedom to live, fully and unashamed. And sometimes, when I walk past the mirror, I catch a glimpse of that kid who used to wonder if he'd ever be enough. I smile at him, and I say, we made it.
I think someone used all of my soy sauce. What the frick? Original? Yeah, I have original. Could you use... I heard the metal scratches and it's bad for your health. Oh. Yeah. I mean, I'm not really scratching it. Bro, someone used all of my freaking... Someone used all of my freaking soy sauce. What the hell? Guys, it's not that bad. Come on, y'all. The rice cooker, fam, it ain't bad. I'm telling you. I have a rice cooker.